Well, good evening or good day or whatever it is where you are. Today in this Fusion 360 catalog, I'm actually not going to do that much of CADing. I kind of want to focus on a tool that I end up enjoying to use quite a lot. And I want to share just a few quick and tips with it, more or less, or well, actually model something. But I want to show you some of the features and some of, just give you some inspiration really working with this tool and how you can utilize it in your own models. So let's just jump into the software. And by the way, you can see here in the screen, this is the old mount that we did. So it's spring-loaded and should take some of the shocks. I'm not sure if you can hear this, but it's kind of good. Maybe that was too loud for you. Sorry if it was. All right, so let's just jump into the software together. I am here in Fusion 360 as usual because this is Fusion 360 for 3D printing. All right, enough with the smearing talk here. So what I want to show to you guys today is, yeah, it's actually the form tool, but I have been showing you guys this before. This is, well, it comes from the T-splines era, but it has kind of evolved from that, so I'm not even sure that you should call it T-splines anymore. But we have a few cool tools with it. So when you enter into the sculpt mode, you have your form. You can create the basic soft shapes that I have been showing you guys before in a video. So these forms here are, you can edit them. They behave like a soft clay, but they end up as as something, what's it called, a solid model more or less. So this behaves like surfaces, but as soon as we stop the form, it becomes a solid, which we can then, for example, just create holes with. I'm just going to do this quickly here. That we can then do like extrusions of. So if I extrude this one here, for example, this all now behaves like a solid, so I can cut it in and work with it as a solid more or less. So enough of that. Basically, I just want to show you guys that what kind of tools we're using here. But when we go into the sculpt mode using of course the forms here, we have a few different tools that we can start off with. There's the standard box here that, well, it's the most normal thing that we use when we're doing that. We also have a plane which you can start off with, and that kind of requires a different video, so I will be showing you guys that, because the planes you have to close yourself. So if I create like different types of surfaces, I then need to close them up and stitch them together and create a solid out of that. And I promise you that is coming in the next video, so make sure you stick around for that. But that's not what I want to focus on today. I want to do something even more easier. So we have the cylinders, we have the spheres, torus, quad ball, and something called pipe, which I find super interesting. So pipe is my kind of new favorite tool. It utilizes sketch lines, so you can basically add in your SVG files and taking curves in 2D, for example, from Illustrator and Inkscape and programs like that, and create models on your shapes. But in this case, I have drawn a few simple here. It's actually 3 sketches. It's one on the bottom, one on a offset layer, and also a sketch just here in the in the corner, more or less. So when I have the pipe tool open here to the right, let me just make sure that you guys can see that. There you can see everything of it. It asked me to select a few paths. So I'm just gonna start selecting. So I'm selecting my 3 sketches, my 3 paths, and we end up with something quite weird. You can see the lines are blue and highlighted in here. I have, there's a little bit of an error here, but that's actually, I want to show you guys that, because this means that it still tries to, so for example, if I unselect this one here, it still tries to draw a tube or a pipe along this line, and when I add the circle, we get an intersection here. But there are some good tools, and it also, by the way, it looks really fat. So there's a few tools here that we want to check out. We have a few selections. We have 3 main categories: sections, end types, and segments. But in the sections one, where we pick the paths, we can also change the global diameter. So I will now type in 10 millimeters instead, and you can see how the pipe kind of narrows this in. And it's also quite interesting here to see, because in the settings down below we have something called global settings, and we can change the view from a box, which is much easier on your graphics card, to a actually smoothed pipe setup. But we still have the problem down here that the pipe isn't closed. And along the model here, if we look at it, it kind of welds together this T junction. Yeah, T junction here really well, and you see the shapes of the lines going down here smoothly and very nicely. But it kind of doesn't do that here. Actually, we have a little bit of an error here. So what we can do is that we take the curve tolerance and increase. So what this does is that it increases the, let's say, welding together. So if I go down to, let's say, 0.1, it takes this line here and tries to fuse them together. So if you don't have a perfect match on your models, you can still get super nice results by using this here. Let's see here now if we were to get it. So I cannot screw everything up there by clicking too many times. But now we have it, and it's welded together down here as well. It looks actually super nice. So if I just click OK here, we end up with a form. And this form we can of course manipulate as we usually do. So for example, this one here, I can move this up. I could even take these here and make like a what's it called, a crease down a few of these here. If I now would like to create something really ugly, which I usually do when I work with the form tools here. So we end up with being able to use this as any form and start doing stuff like we can edit here, hold down Alt and drag it out and create new. So we can actually, well, that looked weird. I didn't mean to do that. So we can start to create and just modify like we usually do with any shape at all. So this is a regular form, which means that when we also click here Finish Form, we will actually close it and it's now a solid. So if I would like, I could do my regular solids testing, which means that I do extrusion through it. So just to prove, maybe it's not even a prove, but just to show you guys that it's a solid and we can work with it. So that's basically one of the cool things, and I want to show you now a little bit on how we sketch this. So I'm just going to start a new window here because I have something hidden here in the mid section. I'm going to show you a little bit later. But we have a few tools to work with. First of all, when we are creating a new sketch, as always, we need to draw on something. So for in this case, I'm going to draw on the bottom plates. I'll make a some sort of, oh, there we go, sketch tree. I'm just going to make some sort of shape down here. It's going to be super ugly, but that's what I want. That's the shape. And again, we could now go directly into form, into pipe, select line, and we'll end up with a spline. Now, splines in general are pretty good at interpolation, which means that we have enough of these segments to control the shape later. But what we could do as well is that we jump into these segments here, so the last category, and we can increase or lower the density of these control splines. But please make sure that you don't have too much, because that's gonna end up being really, really annoying. The only scenarios really when you want to have enough of these, or actually quite a lot of them, is when you're gonna start to match like an end to a solid product. So maybe you have a CAD file from before, maybe it's a, let's say, a bearing or a stepper motor or something, and you want to create a form that attaches to that. You want to have a lot of segments so you can match them easily to the shape. So that's why you would like to have this, but it's usually it's just way too much. But you can see here as well, if we go too low, we don't have enough to follow the spline. So you have to be a little bit careful here. Somewhere in between is usually better. But if we look at this area here, Swedish coming through, we can see that it kind of needs to add quite a lot to get that perfect bend. But if I don't want to add it on the whole model, we can actually lower it a little bit, and then we'll click here on segments, and I should be able to select this one here. Let's see, which one is this one here? It's actually it's kind of difficult to reach in here. So usually this works here, right? Why doesn't that work? We could add more to that section, but I'm actually not sure what section that is. I think that this whole spline is one section, which makes it a little bit more tricky to control it. But let's go in here again. Yeah, all of this is actually one section. That's pretty dumb. So if we have other lines, we could change this section here. Let me just show you that quick as well, so you believe me. I'm gonna make a new sketch just to the side of this, and I'll end up using like this segment. Click OK, and I want to go in and do like a spline here. Repeat spline, something like that. And when we close this now and we do the same procedure, so create a pipe on this one here, you can see now that it's evenly spaced. But if I go to the segments, I can select one of these segments and increase and lower. So these are each of the small lines that we were working on before. So this now means that I can lower the segments on the flatter areas, but increase it on the ones with bends, really. So unfortunately, this spline here was one whole segment, so I couldn't control that. But now you know, and when we smooth it out, we can see how it looks. Maybe I need to add like just a little bit more here, right? Maybe 2, and we'll add a few ones here as well. Great, that looks good. Maybe not good, but it is what it is. So that's how you work with the pipe tool, and I find quite often that there's some pretty cool features that you can do with it. One, of course, being the ability to create pipes and so on. So for example, if we let's say we have a scenario looking something like this, which would be some really ugly Harry Potter style glasses that I'm kind of working on. No, I'm not working on it. This is just a sample for you guys. So if we do the same here, that we start off with a new sketch, well, I have to choose somewhere to sketch on. So I'm gonna choose this plane here, because I'm gonna work a little bit more in this view. Now, before we start drawing here, I want to explain to you what the goal is. The goal is to connect this side with this side using like a series of pipes. Now it's really important that you have 3D sketch on here as well, because what I'm going to do right now is to use the spline tool. Actually, I'm going to start with a strong line, just regular line up here. So when I had the 3D sketch on and all the snaps here, I can actually snap on the object instead of the 2D plane that I'm kind of having or basing my sketch on. So I can start here by, for example, let's see, there on the line you can see the blue highlight of the line. It's really difficult to see. When the line is highlighted like that, we're actually snapping along that. So let's click one time there and start moving over to this side and see the line highlighting, and click once. We've now created a 3D line, which is pretty cool, just the name of it. And I'm gonna do a few of these ones here, because I'm gonna create like a base to work from, and maybe something down there up to that one looks pretty cool. So you can see here we're doing the 3D lines, and I want to snap that one to that one. And I'm actually gonna start to doing some splines as well, just to make it interesting. So make sure we snap on the right one. You can of course play around with the snapping tools here to make sure you don't snap on everything. So now, for example, I could snap here to the background, which is gonna be a little bit ugly, but I could do that, and then I'll snap back here on the edge. Now, of course, I would have to kind of edit this one here because it's snapping on the grid. You can, of course, create a sketch that is closer to your model if you want to. But for this one, I want to move this dot out to the model again. So now we're having a curve here, which I think looks pretty cool. And now I want to start getting a little bit creative. So I'm actually going to add lines, snap it to the lines down here. And we end up with a pretty cool pattern, or we should do when I'm finished. So I'm just gonna work here. You have to navigate a lot, and that's actually one of my top recommendations for new beginners in 3D. you really need to move around a lot in your CAD software, so you get like a feel for where everything is in 3D space. Okay, cool. So we need to do, we don't need to do, but I want to do something more here. Let's just start to connect a few of the dots, so to say. Let's do something like this here as well. Now we start having like these patterns in which we are not really used to seeing in floating around in space, actually having surfaces that we could work with. But I'm gonna stop there. I think that looks really cool. And we're gonna go to form again. We're gonna go to the pipe tool, and we're gonna go to, well, basically start selecting the lines, all of them. Something like that. Now it kind of looks weird, I know, so we want to play around a little bit with the diameter here. Maybe lower it down to like 2. So let's imagine we have like a SLA or SLS printer. We could start to work a little bit here and create some pretty cool things. Of course, want to have it smooth out here. The end types. Now this is a little bit more important. I could close my end types. So the openings here, I could close them with different types of solutions. I'm just going to go with square. This is an example. If you were to work with this and do it like for real, I would also do like an offset here, so we connect the dots a little bit on the inside, so we have a better overlapping here. And of course you can work with the form and match these edges to the outlines of the shape, but I'm not going to bother with that now, because that's actually quite a lot of work to do. But on the segments, I also want to lower it down a little bit. I want to have a little bit more of this connecting mesh thingy, which I think looks pretty cool. And I also want to, yeah, I think I'm done there actually. That looks pretty cool. It's updating, and I'm just gonna take my, I'm just gonna do my, what's it called? Screenshot here while I'm working for you guys. Just gonna save that to this place here. So if I finish this form, which I will do in a second. Oh, wow, the voice. Will blah 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 blah. Oh, okay, it's self-intersecting. That's interesting, and I can kind of figure out where. So we're gonna edit this again. So you can see down here, for example, it's self-intersecting. So what I'm gonna do about that is to well, to move it around. I'm gonna edit this form just slightly. I'm gonna remove those faces. I'm gonna weld these vertices together. Whoa, wow, that's spinning around a lot. Yes, so there are obviously limitations on the kind of creasing edges that you can do. So I'm actually gonna try to crease this one here and see if that helps. Could do. Let's see if we can repair this now. Body. So for example, these one lines here, when they go together, you kind of have to do a little bit of manual adjustment. So that could be good to know. Hopefully this will work now, right? Yes, there we go. Now we have a closed form. So we actually have our, it's actually, let's see, why is it not a So what I didn't say to you was that I stitched this model here using the stitching tool in the patch. I didn't weld all the vertices, which was why I was so confused here. There we go, just gonna have to stitch it a little bit. So now we have our form, which is a body as well, so that's a solid. So there we go, now you know how to do some cool patterns. And that's basically what I wanted to show you guys today. It's a fairly quick video. Maybe not. And now you know how to use the pipe tools in the modeling here, the pipe tools, and I recommend you guys to play around with them because they're pretty awesome and you can do some cool models here. So for example, just gonna finish off with combining these ones here, so we actually get one cool shape. Join them all together and we have one single body that we, in theory, could 3D print if we have, for example, a SLA printer or something like that, SLA or SLS or something that can print small. small tubes like this. So for example, if you're working with models that you want to print on shapeways, for example, or 3D hubs in a metal printer, I would recommend doing these kind of patterns because they're pretty freaking awesome to work with. So hope you learned something new today. If not, complain. If you did, make a comment. Make a comment. Write a comment. Make a comment. That's the new thing, right? No, seriously. If you enjoy this, just let me know so I can make more of them. And with that said, hope you enjoy your evening. See you guys soon. Bye.